Marcus Chen woke up at 5 in the morning like he did every day. He made himself a cup of instant coffee in his small apartment in Queens. The place was nothing special. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that barely fit a couch and a small desk. But it was his, and he had worked hard for 12 years to keep it that way. He put on his clean white shirt and black pants. These were his work clothes. Marcus took pride in looking neat, even though he knew most passengers never really looked at him. To them, he was just the driver, the man who took them from point A to point B, the invisible person behind the wheel. By 6 in the morning, Marcus was sitting in his yellow taxicab. The car smelled like the Pine air freshener he changed every week. He kept his cab spotless. No trash, no stains, no bad smells. Some drivers did not care about these things, but Marcus did. He believed that a clean cab meant respect. Respect for himself and respect for his passengers. Marcus started his engine and drove toward Manhattan. The city was just waking up. Street cleaners were finishing their night shifts. A few early joggers ran past him. Bakeries turned on their lights. This was his favorite time of day. The calm before the storm. His first passenger of the day was always around 7. Marcus had a regular spot near Wall Street, the financial district of New York City. This was where the money lived. Giant buildings made of glass and steel stretched up to the sky. Inside those buildings, people made decisions that affected millions of lives. They bought and sold companies. They traded stocks worth billions of dollars. They controlled the flow of money around the world. Marcus had been driving in this area for 12 years. He knew every street, every shortcut, every traffic pattern. But more importantly, he knew the people. The executives in their expensive suits. The young traders with their fancy watches. The hedge fund managers who talked on their phones like the world depended on every word they said. And they talked. Oh, how they talked. Most taxi drivers put on music or the radio. They tuned out their passengers. But not Marcus. From his very first day, he listened. At first, he did not understand much. The passengers used words he had never heard before. Derivatives, portfolios, short selling, liquidity. It was like they spoke a different language. So Marcus decided to learn that language. During his breaks, he went to the public library. He read books about finance and investing. He studied how the stock market worked. He learned what those fancy words meant. Slowly, month by month, year by year, the conversations in his backseat started to make sense. But Marcus did more than just understand the words. He started to notice patterns. He began to see how the mood changed. Some months his passengers were happy and confident. They laughed loud. They made jokes. They talked about buying vacation homes and taking trips to Europe. They tipped well, sometimes very well. Other times the mood was different. The passengers seemed worried. They talked quieter. They checked their phones more often. Their jokes were not as funny. The tips got smaller. These were the times when Marcus paid extra attention. He started keeping notebooks. Small black notebooks that fit in his pocket. After each shift, Marcus would sit in his apartment and write down what he heard. Not word for word, because that would be impossible. But he wrote down the general feelings, the topics people discussed most, the companies they mentioned, the worry in their voices or the excitement. Page after page, month after month, year after year. 12 years of notes. 12 years of patterns. His friends thought he was crazy. Marcus, why do you care what rich people say? They asked him. You are just a cab driver. This is not your world. But Marcus did not see it that way. He believed that knowledge was power, and he had access to knowledge that most people did not have. In his cab, these powerful people let their guard down. They forgot he was there. They said things they would never say in their offices or in public. Marcus remembered one conversation from several years ago. 2 men in suits got in his cab. They were celebrating. One of them had just made a huge profit on a stock trade. The man was so excited that he could not stop talking. I knew it would go up, the man said. Everyone else was scared, but I saw the opportunity. When everyone is fearful, that is when you make money. Marcus wrote that down in his notebook that night. When everyone is scared, look for opportunities. He collected hundreds of these little lessons. Sometimes the lessons came from happy passengers. Sometimes they came from angry or worried ones. All of them taught him something about how money worked, how markets moved, how psychology played a bigger role than most people realized. September arrived like any other month. The weather started to cool down. The leaves on the few trees in Manhattan began to change color. Marcus drove his usual routes, picked up his usual types of passengers. But something felt different. At first, Marcus could not put his finger on it. The conversation seemed normal on the surface. People still talked about deals and trades and profits, but there was an edge to their voices, a tension that had not been there before. One morning, Marcus picked up a woman in an expensive suit. She was a portfolio manager at a large investment firm. He had driven her before. Usually, she was calm and professional. She would make phone calls during the ride, speaking in that confident voice that successful people have. But this day was different. She got in the cab and immediately checked her phone. Then she checked it again. And again. Her leg bounced up and down nervously. When her phone rang, she answered it quickly. "I do not know," she said to whoever was on the other end. "The numbers are not making sense. Everything looks good on paper, but something feels off." Marcus noted this in his mind. Something feels off. He had heard similar things 3 times that week already. The next day, he picked up 2 young traders. They could not have been older than 30. They wore suits that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Usually, these young guys were full of energy and confidence. They bragged about their wins and joked about their lifestyle. But these 2 were different. They talked in low voices, almost whispers. Marcus had to strain to hear them. "My boss is freaking out," one of them said. "He thinks we are over-leveraged. He wants to pull back on some positions." "Mine too," the other replied. "But if we pull back now and the market keeps going up, we will look like idiots." Marcus made a mental note. Fear of looking stupid was keeping people in dangerous positions. He had seen this before, years ago, right before a small market drop. The pattern continued, day after day, week after week. The conversations changed. The confidence faded. The worry grew. Marcus filled page after page in his current notebook. One Thursday evening, Marcus picked up a senior executive from a major bank. The man looked exhausted. His tie was loose. His expensive shoes were scuffed. He got in the cab and just sat there for a moment with his eyes closed. "Rough day?" Marcus asked, something he rarely did. Usually he stayed quiet and just listened. The man opened his eyes and looked at Marcus like he just remembered where he was. "You have no idea," he said. "This whole thing is a house of cards. One strong wind and it all comes down." The man said nothing else for the rest of the ride. But Marcus did not need to hear more. That one sentence told him everything. That night, Marcus sat at his small desk in his apartment. He spread out his notebooks. 12 years of observations lay before him. He looked at the patterns from previous market drops. He compared them to what he had been seeing recently. The similarities were striking. Marcus opened his laptop. He had a small trading account. Nothing big, just $15,000 he had saved over the years. Money he could afford to lose, though losing it would hurt. He had opened the account 2 years ago and had made a few small trades, mostly to learn how trading actually worked. Now, looking at all his notes and all the patterns, Marcus made a decision. He was going to bet against the market. He was going to predict that stock prices would fall, soon. His hands shook slightly as he placed the trades. This was not a small decision. This was 12 years of listening, learning, and observing all coming together in one moment. If he was right, he could change his life. If he was wrong, he would lose his savings. Marcus closed his laptop. Tomorrow he would wake up at 5 in the morning again. He would make his instant coffee. He would put on his clean shirt and black pants. He would drive his yellow cab through the streets of Manhattan. And he would listen. Because listening, Marcus had learned, was the most valuable skill in the world. The morning after Marcus placed his trades, he woke up feeling strange. It was not regret exactly, but it was not confidence either. He had bet $15,000 that the stock market would crash. That was a lot of money for a taxi driver. That was years of saving, of working long shifts, of saying no to vacations and new clothes and nights out with friends. He made his coffee and tried not to think about it too much. What was done was done. Now he just had to wait and see if his 12 years of listening would pay off. Marcus drove to Manhattan like always. The streets were busy with morning traffic. Yellow cabs everywhere, all of them fighting for the same passengers. But Marcus was not worried about competition. He had his spot, his routine, his regulars. His first passenger was a man he had driven many times before, an analyst at a big investment firm. The man always sat in the back and worked on his laptop during the ride. Today was no different. Marcus watched him in the rearview mirror. The man's face was tight with concentration. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. "Rough morning?" Marcus asked, breaking his usual silence. The man looked up, surprised. "Every morning is rough lately," he said. Then he went back to his laptop. Marcus drove on. That small exchange told him something. The stress was not going away. If anything, it was getting worse. Throughout the day, Marcus paid closer attention than ever before. Now he had skin in the game, as the traders like to say. Now he was not just an observer. He was a participant. Every conversation in his back seat mattered more. A woman got in around noon. She was talking on her phone, speaking fast and angry. "I do not care what the models say," she nearly shouted. "The models do not account for human panic, and people are starting to panic." She ended the call and sat back hard in the seat. Marcus could see her reflection in the mirror. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When they reached her destination, she paid and added a small tip. "Sorry you had to hear that," she said. "No problem," Marcus replied. "Sounds like a tough day, tough week, tough month," she said. "Maybe tough year if things keep going this way." After she left, Marcus pulled over and took out his current notebook. He wrote, "Models do not account for human panic. People are starting to panic." The date, September 23rd. The days began to blur together. Marcus was driving more hours than usual. Not because he needed the money right now, but because he needed the information. Every ride was data. Every conversation was a piece of the puzzle. He started noticing smaller details. The tips were definitely getting smaller. That was a clear sign. When people felt secure about their money, they were generous. When they felt worried, they held on tighter to every dollar. The phone calls were different too. Before, passengers made calls about making deals, about opportunities, about growth. Now the calls were about protection, about reducing risk, about being careful. One afternoon, Marcus picked up 3 young traders who were clearly upset. They had just come from a meeting with their boss. They got in the cab and immediately started complaining. "He is completely overreacting," one of them said. "So what if some numbers look bad? The market always bounces back." "But did you see his face?" another one said. "I have never seen him look scared before. And he does not get scared easily." The third one was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My dad called me last night. He has been investing for 30 years. He told me to sell everything and sit on cash for a while. He said something big is coming." "Your dad is old school," the first trader said. "He does not understand the new market." But the third trader did not respond. He just looked out the window. Marcus wrote all of this down that evening. The young ones were still denying the problem. But the experienced people, the ones who had seen crashes before, they were getting out. They were protecting themselves. He thought about his own trades. He had bet that stock prices would fall. Specifically, he had bought what were called put options on several major stock indexes. Put options were like insurance policies. If the market fell, these options would become very valuable. If the market went up, they would become worthless. It was a risky move. But Marcus did not think it was a gamble. He thought it was a calculated decision based on years of research. During his breaks, Marcus had started doing something new. He had found an online investment forum where regular people talked about the stock market. Nobody there knew who he was. He created an account with the username CabDriver88. The 88 was his birth year. He started posting his observations, not as predictions, but as things he noticed. "The mood on Wall Street has changed," he wrote. "The confidence is gone. People are nervous." Most people on the forum ignored him. A few made fun of him. "A cab driver thinks he knows about markets," one person wrote. "Stick to driving, buddy." But a few people paid attention. They asked him questions. What exactly was he hearing? Which companies were people most worried about? What were the specific concerns? Marcus answered honestly. He did not pretend to be an expert. He just shared what he heard in his cab every day. He explained that he had been doing this for 12 years, that he had notebooks full of patterns, that he had learned to read the mood of Wall Street by listening to the people who worked there. One person on the forum took him seriously, a retired teacher named Dorothy, who managed her own retirement savings. She sent him a private message. "I believe you," she wrote. "I do not know anything about high finance, but I know people. And if people are scared, that matters. What do you think I should do?" Marcus thought carefully before responding. He did not want to give advice that could hurt someone. I am not a financial advisor, he wrote back. I cannot tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I am doing. I am betting that the market will go down. I could be completely wrong. Only invest what you can afford to lose, Dorothy thanked him. A few days later, she messaged him again. She had moved some of her money into safer investments, bonds and cash. She said she was sleeping better now. Marcus felt a weight of responsibility. Someone had actually listened to him. Someone had made a real decision based on his observations. He hoped he was right. The weeks crawled by. Marcus kept driving, kept listening, kept taking notes. The pattern became clearer and clearer. The fear was spreading. It started with the senior people, the ones with decades of experience. Then it moved to the middle managers. Now even the young traders were starting to show concern. One day in early October, Marcus picked up a man who looked like he had not slept in days. His suit was wrinkled. He had coffee stains on his shirt. He got in the cab and gave Marcus an address in Brooklyn. A residential address, not an office. Going home early? Marcus asked. Going home, period, the man said. I just quit. This surprised Marcus. Quit your job? The man nodded. 12 years at that company. But I am not going down with the ship. I can see what is coming. The writing is on the wall. I would rather leave now on my own terms than get fired in a month when everything falls apart. Are you sure it will fall apart? Marcus asked. The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. I have seen the books. I know what we are holding. It is toxic, and we are not the only ones. Half of Wall Street is sitting on garbage they pretend is gold. When people figure it out, it will be chaos. Marcus took a longer route to Brooklyn. He wanted to hear more. The man kept talking, almost like he needed to get it all out. You know what the crazy thing is? The man said. Everyone knows. Deep down, everyone knows this cannot last, but nobody wants to be the first one to say it out loud. Nobody wants to be the one who stops the party. So we all just keep pretending everything is fine. When they got to the man's house, he paid Marcus and added a $20 tip. Thanks for listening, he said. You're probably the only honest person I talked to all week. After the man left, Marcus sat in his cab for a long moment. He took out his notebook and wrote down everything the man had said. This was it. This was confirmation. Not just worry or nervousness. This was someone on the inside saying clearly that the system was broken. That night, Marcus checked his trading account. His put options had gone up a little in value, but not much. The market was still holding steady. Prices were still high. To anyone looking at the numbers, everything seemed fine. But Marcus knew better. He knew that numbers only told part of the story. The other part was in the voices, the faces, the sleepless eyes of the people he drove every day. He went back to the investment forum and posted an update. The crash is coming, he wrote. I do not know exactly when, but it is close. The people who work in finance know something is wrong. They are getting out quietly. By the time the public realizes it, it will be too late. More people made fun of him. Another doomsday prophet, someone wrote. The market has been doing great. You are going to lose all your money. But Dorothy messaged him again. I trust you, she wrote. I moved more money to safety. Whatever happens, I want you to know that you helped me. You made me think about things differently. Marcus wrote back to her. I hope I am right. For both of us. He closed his laptop and looked around his small apartment. The same furniture he had owned for years. The same cracked ceiling he kept meaning to get fixed. The same life he had been living for so long. Marcus woke up on October 15th to the sound of rain hitting his window. It was still dark outside. He reached for his phone to check the time and saw that he had 15 missed calls, all from numbers he did not recognize. His heart started beating faster. Something was happening. He opened his news app. The first headline made him sit up straight in bed. Major financial institution announces massive losses. Market futures point to opening crash. Marcus read the article quickly. One of the biggest banks in America had just revealed that they had been hiding billions of dollars in bad investments. They were on the edge of collapse. The news had broken an hour ago in the middle of the night. Stock market futures, which showed where prices would open in the morning, had dropped like a stone. He checked his trading account with shaking hands. His put options, the bets he had made that the market would fall, were already up 40% in value. And the market had not even opened yet. Marcus got out of bed and walked to his window. The street below was empty and wet. The city was still asleep, but in a few hours when Wall Street opened, everything would change. He made his coffee but could not drink it. His stomach was tight with a mix of excitement and fear. He had been right. His 12 years of listening, of taking notes, of seeing patterns that others missed, it had all been leading to this moment. But he felt no joy. Because he knew what this meant for millions of people. Retirement accounts would lose value. Jobs would be lost. Dreams would be crushed. This was not a game. This was real money, real lives. Marcus decided not to drive today. He needed to watch what happened. He turned on the financial news channel. The reporters looked worried. They were talking fast, trying to explain what was happening. Experts called in, all of them using complicated words to describe something very simple. Fear. At 9:30, the stock market opened. The numbers on the screen fell immediately. Red everywhere. Every stock, every sector, every index, all dropping. The fall was so fast that the market triggered automatic stops, pauses designed to slow down panic selling. But when the market reopened after each pause, the selling just continued. Marcus watched for hours. He could not look away. By noon, the market was down 8%. That might not sound like much to regular people, but in the world of finance, it was a disaster. Trillions of dollars in value had disappeared in just a few hours. His phone kept ringing. Finally, Marcus looked at who was calling. Some were reporters. He did not know how they got his number. Others were from the investment forum. Someone had figured out his real identity. He turned off his phone. He was not ready to talk to anyone yet. The market closed that day with the biggest single-day loss in over a decade. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. This was not a one-day event. This was the start of something bigger. The next day was worse. Marcus watched as the market opened down another 6%. His put options were now worth over $90,000. His $15,000 had become $90,000 in less than 48 hours. He felt sick. Yes, he was making money, but he was making money because the economy was falling apart. It felt wrong somehow. On the third day, Marcus decided to go back to driving. He needed to see it with his own eyes. He needed to hear what people were saying now that their worst fears had come true. The city felt different. There was a heaviness in the air. When Marcus got to the financial district, he saw crowds of people standing outside buildings looking at their phones, talking in worried groups. His first passenger of the day was a woman in her 50s. She looked like she had been crying. She got in the cab and gave him an address uptown. "Rough few days?" Marcus asked gently. The woman nodded. "I just lost my job. 23 years at that company, and they let me go this morning. They said they have to cut costs." Her voice cracked. "I have a daughter in college. I do not know how I am going to pay her tuition now." Marcus felt terrible. "I am very sorry," he said. "That is not fair." "Nothing is fair," she said quietly. She looked out the window for the rest of the ride. When she left, Marcus sat in his cab feeling heavy. This was the other side of his winning bet. For every dollar he made, someone else had lost a dollar. That woman had just lost her job because of the crash he had predicted. Throughout the day, the rides were all similar. Scared people, angry people, people who had just seen their savings lose value, their jobs disappear, their plans for the future fall apart. One man got in the cab and started yelling immediately. Not at Marcus specifically, just at the world. "Those idiots," he shouted. "I trusted them with my retirement money. 30 years of savings and now half of it is gone. How am I supposed to retire now? I'm 62 years old. I cannot start over." Marcus let him yell. Sometimes people just needed to let it out. By the end of the week, the market had fallen 15% from its peak. Marcus's trading account was now worth over $180,000. From $15,000 to $180,000 in 1 week. But the money felt strange in his hands. He had been right, yes. He had made the smart bet. But he did not feel smart. He felt sad. That weekend, Marcus finally turned his phone back on. He had over 200 messages. Most were from reporters wanting to interview him. A few were from the investment forum. One message was from Dorothy, the retired teacher who had believed him. "Thank you," she wrote. "Because of your warning, I moved my money to safety. My friends all lost at least 20% of their retirement savings. But I am okay. You saved me. Thank you. That message made Marcus feel a little better. At least he had helped someone. There was another message from someone claiming to be a reporter from a major financial newspaper. We know you predicted this crash, the message said. We have seen your posts on the investment forum. We want to tell your story. Please call me. Marcus thought about it all weekend. Part of him wanted to stay invisible, to take his profits and go back to his quiet life. But another part of him felt like maybe he had something to say. Maybe his story could teach people something. On Monday, Marcus called the reporter. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. She sounded young and eager. Mr. Chen, she said, I have been following your posts on the investment forum for the past 2 weeks. You predicted this crash with incredible accuracy. How did you do it? Marcus told her the truth. About his 12 years of driving a cab through Wall Street. About listening to thousands of conversations. About keeping notebooks full of observations. About learning to read the mood, to see patterns, to understand when confidence turned to fear. Sarah asked him dozens of questions. When did he first notice something was wrong? What specific things did he hear? How did he learn about finance? Why did he decide to make trades based on his observations? Marcus answered honestly. He did not try to sound smarter than he was. He explained that he was just a cab driver who paid attention, who listened when others did not. This is an amazing story, Sarah said at the end. I want to write an article about you, about how a taxi driver saw what all the experts missed. Is that okay? Marcus hesitated. Will people believe it? He asked. I will make sure they do, Sarah said. I will verify everything. I will show your forum posts, the dates, the predictions. This is real and people need to know about it. Okay, Marcus said, but please be fair. I did not want this crash to happen. I just saw it coming. I understand, Sarah said. The article came out 3 days later. The headline read, The Taxi Driver Who Saw What Wall Street Missed. It was on the front page of the business section. Sarah had done her research. She quoted his forum posts. She included testimony from Dorothy and others who had listened to his warnings. She explained his method of collecting observations over 12 years. She even got quotes from economists saying that his approach had merit, that sometimes the best information comes from unexpected sources. The article went viral. By the end of the day, it had been shared hundreds of thousands of times on social media. News websites picked it up. Television stations called asking Marcus to come on their shows. Marcus Chen, the unknown cab driver from Queens, had become famous overnight. People called him a genius. They said he had outsmarted Wall Street. They wanted to know his secrets. But Marcus did not feel like a genius. He felt like someone who had simply been paying attention while others were too busy or too confident to see what was right in front of them. His phone would not stop ringing. Cable news wanted him. Financial podcasts wanted him. Investment firms were calling with job offers. Everyone wanted a piece of the cab driver who had predicted the crash. Marcus sat in his small apartment looking at his trading account. $180,000. More money than he had ever had in his life. Money that could change everything for him. But he also looked at the news. At the people losing jobs. At families struggling. At retirement dreams disappearing. And he wondered if being right was worth all of this. One thing was certain, though. His life as an invisible cab driver was over. Whether he wanted it or not, Marcus Chen had become someone people noticed. Someone people listened to. Someone who mattered. The question now was what he would do with that attention. Would he take the Wall Street job offers? Would he become another voice in the financial world? Or would he find another way, a different path? Marcus did not have the answer yet. But he knew that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same again. The crash had changed the economy. And it had changed his life too. He looked out his window at the city below. Somewhere out there, people were scared and hurting. Somewhere out there, the market was still falling. And somewhere out there, his yellow cab sat parked on the street, waiting to see if its driver would ever return. The day after the article came out, Marcus could not leave his apartment. There were news vans parked outside his building. Reporters knocked on his door every hour. His neighbors looked at him differently now, some with respect, others with something that looked like suspicion. Mrs. Lopez from apartment 3B stopped him in the hallway. She was an elderly woman who had lived in the building for 30 years. Is it true? She asked. Did you really know the market would crash? I had a feeling, Marcus said carefully. I saw some signs. My son lost his job last week, Mrs. Lopez said. Her voice was not angry, just sad. He worked at a bank. They laid off 200 people. Marcus felt his stomach drop. I am sorry, he said. I really am. Mrs. Lopez nodded and walked away. Marcus stood in the hallway feeling terrible. This was happening more and more. People looking at him like he had caused the crash, not just predicted it. His phone rang again. It was Sarah Mitchell, the reporter who had written the article about him. Marcus, every major news network wants to interview you, she said. CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox Business, everyone, this is huge. I do not know, Marcus said. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Are you kidding? Sarah said. Your story is inspiring people. Do you know how many messages I have gotten from regular people saying you gave them hope? That you proved someone from outside the system can understand it better than the people inside? But I also made money while other people lost everything, Marcus said. That does not feel inspiring. That feels wrong. Sarah was quiet for a moment. You did not cause the crash, she finally said. The banks and the risky investments caused the crash. You just saw it coming. That is not something to feel guilty about. Marcus wanted to believe her, but guilt was a hard feeling to shake. That evening, he agreed to do his first television interview. It was with a cable news business show. They sent a car to pick him up. A black luxury car, much nicer than his taxi. The driver wore a suit and called him Mr. Chen. The television studio was overwhelming. Bright lights everywhere, makeup people who wanted to powder his face, producers who told him where to sit and how to look at the camera. Marcus felt completely out of place. The host was a man named David Sterling. He had perfectly gray hair and an expensive suit. He smiled at Marcus, but the smile did not reach his eyes. When the interview started, David's first question surprised Marcus. So, Mr. Chen, some people are saying you got lucky, that any random prediction can come true if you make enough of them. What do you say to that? Marcus had not expected an attack. I did not make random predictions, he said, trying to stay calm. I kept records for 12 years. I saw patterns. I noticed when behavior changed. But you are a taxi driver, David said. No offense, but what qualifies you to analyze financial markets? Do you have a degree in economics? Any formal training? No, Marcus admitted. But I had something else. I had access. Every day, the people who make the big decisions sat in my cab. They talked freely. They let their guard down. I just listened. Listened to private conversations, David said, raising his eyebrows. Some might call that unethical. Did these people know you were taking notes on what they said? Marcus felt trapped. I did not record names or specific private information. I just noted general moods and topics. Is that different from any journalist who listens to people talk in public? The interview went on for 15 minutes. Every question felt like a test Marcus was failing. When it was over, he felt exhausted and embarrassed. In the car ride home, Marcus checked social media on his phone. The interview was already being discussed. People were split. Some defended him. Others called him a fraud, lucky or worse. One comment stood out. This guy made money while regular people lost their life savings. He is not a hero. He is just another vulture. Marcus closed his phone. Maybe coming forward had been a mistake. But the next morning, he got a call that changed his perspective. It was from a man named Robert Chen. No relation, but the same last name. Mr. Chen, I know you do not know me, Robert said. But I wanted to thank you. I'm a construction worker in Ohio. I had $50,000 saved for my retirement. It was in the stock market. After I read your story and saw your old forum posts, I looked at the dates. You warned people weeks before the crash. I went back and read your warnings, and I realized that if I had been paying attention, I could have protected my money too. I am sorry you lost money, Marcus said. No, you do not understand, Robert said. I did not lose it. After the crash started, I remembered your posts. On the second day of the crash, when everyone was panicking, I read your analysis again. You said this was not just a one-day event. You said it would get worse, so I sold everything. Yes, I lost some money from the first day, but I saved most of it. My friends who held on, hoping it would bounce back, they lost everything. You saved me. After that call, Marcus felt different. Maybe his story was not about being right or making money. Maybe it was about something else. About paying attention, about trusting your observations even when experts disagree, about the value of perspective. He agreed to do more interviews. But this time he had a message he wanted to share. On a morning talk show, the host asked him what he thought regular people should learn from his story. "I think people should trust themselves more," Marcus said. "The experts are not always right. Sometimes the person with the best view is not the person at the top. Sometimes it is the person at the bottom, watching everything happen." "Are you saying people should not listen to financial advisors?" the host asked. "No," Marcus said. "I am saying people should listen to advisors but also trust their own eyes. If something does not feel right, pay attention to that feeling. I am not special. I just paid attention." The interview went better. People responded positively. His message was getting through. A few days later, Marcus got a call from a hedge fund manager named Elizabeth Park. She ran a fund that managed $3 billion. "Mr. Chen, I would like to offer you a job," she said. $200,000 a year to start. You would be our cultural analyst. Your job would be to do exactly what you did in your taxi. Listen to people. Notice patterns. Report back to us. $200,000. That was more than 10 times what Marcus made as a cab driver. "That is a generous offer," Marcus said slowly. "Can I think about it?" "Of course," Elizabeth said. "But do not think too long. Other firms are going to make you similar offers. You have become valuable, Mr. Chen." That night, Marcus sat in his apartment thinking about the offer. $200,000. He could move out of this small apartment. He could stop worrying about money. He could have the life he had always wanted. But something did not feel right. If he took that job, he would become part of the system. He would be working for the same people he used to observe. Would he still see things clearly, or would he start thinking like them? He got another call the next day. This one from a producer at a major financial podcast. They wanted him to be a regular guest. $20,000 per episode, 4 episodes a month, another call, a publishing company. They wanted him to write a book about his experience. A 6-figure advance, another call, a speaking agency. They could book him for corporate events. $50,000 per speech. The offers kept coming. Everyone wanted a piece of Marcus Chen, the taxi driver who predicted the crash. Marcus felt overwhelmed. A month ago, he was invisible. Now everyone wanted something from him. Money, advice, appearances, insights. It was too much. He decided to go for a drive. Not in his taxi, just in his personal car. He drove around the city with no destination. Just thinking. He ended up in the financial district. It was evening. The streets were mostly empty. He parked and walked around. These streets he knew so well. Every corner familiar, every building a part of his history. A young woman was sitting on a bench crying. She wore a business suit. Her expensive bag sat next to her. Marcus almost walked past, but something made him stop. "Are you okay?" he asked. She looked up at him with red eyes. "I just got fired," she said. "I worked so hard to get this job. I did everything right, and they just let me go because the company is losing money." Marcus sat down next to her on the bench. "I am sorry," he said. "That is really hard. Everyone keeps saying the economy will recover," she said. "But what about me? How do I recover? I have student loans. I have rent. I have bills. What am I supposed to do now?" Marcus did not have an answer. He just sat with her in silence for a while. Finally, she wiped her eyes. "Sorry," she said. "You do not need to hear my problems." "It is okay," Marcus said. "Sometimes it helps to talk." She smiled a little. "Are you a therapist or something?" "No," Marcus said. "I am a taxi driver," she laughed. "Well, you are a good listener." After she left, Marcus sat on the bench alone. He thought about all the offers he had received. All the money, all the opportunities, all the ways his life could change. But he also thought about that young woman, about Mrs. Lopez's son who lost his job, about all the regular people who were hurt by the crash, about the responsibility that came with being right. Marcus realized something important. He did not predict the crash to get rich or famous. He did it because after 12 years of listening, he finally understood the language of money and fear. He did it because someone needed to say out loud what everyone was thinking quietly. The question now was what to do with this knowledge and this attention. He could take the high-paying jobs and become part of Wall Street. Or he could do something different, something that might actually help people. Marcus did not have the full answer yet, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever he decided, it had to be on his own terms. He had not spent 12 years building his perspective just to lose it now. He walked back to his car and drove home. Tomorrow he would make some decisions. Tonight he just needed to think. 3 weeks after the crash began, Marcus made his decision. He turned down all the job offers from hedge funds and investment banks. He turned down most of the speaking requests. He kept only a few things: the podcast appearances where he could speak freely, and a book deal where he maintained full creative control. His friends thought he was crazy. His brother called him from California. "Marcus, they offered you $200,000 a year. Do you know what you could do with that money?" "I know," Marcus said, "but I would have to change who I am to earn it. And then I would just be another person in a suit making rich people richer. So what are you going to do instead?" his brother asked. "I am not sure yet," Marcus admitted, "but I will figure it out." The truth was, Marcus did have an idea, but he wanted to test it first before talking about it publicly. He went back to driving his taxi. Not full-time like before, but a few days a week. He needed to stay connected to the street, to real people, to the pulse of the city. His passengers reacted differently now. Some recognized him from television. They wanted to talk about the crash, about their losses, about their fears for the future. Marcus listened, just like he always had. But now he also shared what he knew. Not as predictions or advice, but as observations. One passenger, a teacher named Mr. Williams, told Marcus he had lost 40% of his retirement savings. "I am 55 years old," he said. "I was planning to retire at 65. Now I do not know if I ever can." Marcus thought about what to say. "The market will probably recover eventually," he said. "It always does. But the question is whether you can wait for that recovery. Do you need this money soon, or can you leave it alone for 5 or 10 years? "I guess I can wait," Mr. Williams said. "But what if it crashes again? How do I know when to get out next time?" "You listen," Marcus said. "Not to the news or the experts. Listen to regular people. Listen to your own gut. When your neighbors start bragging about how much money they are making in stocks, that is when you should be careful. When everyone is scared and selling, that is often when it is safe to buy." Mr. Williams wrote this down in his phone. "That makes sense," he said. "It is the opposite of what feels natural." "Exactly," Marcus said. "The market is driven by emotion. Fear and greed. If you can control your emotions and think clearly, you have an advantage." After that conversation, Marcus realized what he wanted to do. He wanted to teach regular people what he had learned. Not how to predict crashes or make big bets, but how to think about money, how to read situations, how to trust their own observations. He started a newsletter. It was simple and free. Every week, Marcus wrote about what he was seeing and hearing. Not predictions, but observations. The mood on Wall Street, the topics business people were discussing, the general sense of confidence or fear. At the end of each newsletter, he included a section called "What This Means for You." In simple language, he explained how regular people might want to think about these observations. Should they be more careful with money? Should they look for opportunities? Should they just stay the course? The newsletter started small. A few hundred subscribers, mostly people who had followed him on the investment forum. But word spread. After a month, he had 5,000 subscribers. After 2 months, 20,000. After 3 months, over 100,000 people were reading his weekly observations. Marcus was surprised by the response. He got emails every day from readers thanking him, not for making them rich, but for helping them think differently about money. One email came from a nurse named Patricia. She wrote, "I always thought I was too dumb to understand finance. The experts used big words and made it seem so complicated. But you explain things in a way I can understand. Last week you wrote about how consumer spending patterns can show if people are worried about the economy. I work in a hospital, and I started paying attention to what patients say about money. You are right. People are way more worried than the news shows. Thank you for teaching me to pay attention." These emails meant more to Marcus than any job offer. He also started doing something else. He began offering free classes at the local library. Every other Saturday afternoon, Marcus taught regular people about financial awareness. Not investing strategies or stock tips, just basic concepts about reading the economy, understanding risk, and making smart decisions. The first class had 12 people. The second had 30. By the fourth class, they had to move to a bigger room because over 60 people showed up. Marcus taught them what he knew. How to spot bubbles, how to recognize when confidence becomes dangerous overconfidence, how to understand that the news is often wrong because it reports what already happened, not what is about to happen. The key is to be a step ahead, Marcus told his class, not because you are smarter, but because you are paying attention to different things. The experts look at data and charts. That is useful. But you should also look at people. How are your neighbors acting? Are they spending freely or cutting back? Are they confident or worried? These human signals often come before the data changes. One woman raised her hand. Her name was Jennifer. But Mr. Chen, how can we trust our observations? What if we are wrong? You will be wrong sometimes, Marcus said honestly. I have been wrong many times. But being wrong is not the worst thing. The worst thing is not paying attention at all. The worst thing is giving all your power to experts and hoping they will protect you. Nobody cares about your money as much as you do. So you have to be involved. You have to understand. The classes grew more popular. People started bringing their friends and family members. Local news covered the story. Taxi driver turned financial guru teaches free classes to community. But Marcus pushed back on the guru label. I am not a guru, he told the reporter. I am just a regular person who paid attention. Anyone can do what I did. That is the whole point. 6 months after the crash, Marcus got an unexpected call. It was from Dorothy, the retired teacher who had been one of the first people to believe his warnings on the investment forum. Marcus, I want to help you, she said. What you are doing with the newsletter and the classes, it is wonderful. But you are doing it all alone. You need help. I appreciate that, Marcus said, but I cannot afford to hire anyone yet. I do not want money, Dorothy said. I want to volunteer. I am retired. I have time. And you helped save my retirement savings. This is how I want to give back. Marcus was touched. Are you sure? Absolutely, Dorothy said. Let me help with the newsletter. I can edit it, format it, maybe help it reach more people. I taught English for 30 years. I know how to make writing clear and accessible. Marcus agreed. With Dorothy's help, the newsletter got even better. She also helped him organize the classes, create handouts, and build a simple website where people could access resources. Other people started volunteering too. A graphic designer made the newsletter look more professional. A retired accountant helped develop simple budget tools that Marcus could share with his readers. A young programmer built a better website. What had started as just Marcus in his small apartment had become a small movement. Regular people helping other regular people understand money and economics. The financial world took notice. Some experts praised what Marcus was doing. A professor at Columbia University wrote an article calling Marcus's approach Behavioral Economics in Action. He explained that Marcus was teaching people to look at the human side of markets, which was often more important than the numbers, but others criticized him. A famous investment advisor went on television and called Marcus dangerous. He is teaching people to make emotional decisions based on feelings rather than facts, the advisor said. That is not how investing works, Marcus responded in his next newsletter. Feelings are facts, he wrote. The market is made up of millions of people making decisions based on their feelings. Fear and greed drive prices more than spreadsheets do. Understanding human emotion is not anti-intellectual. It is realistic. His readers supported him. The newsletter readership grew to over 300,000 people. Marcus also made another decision. He took some of the money he had made from the crash and created a small fund, not for himself, but to help people in his community who had been hurt by the economic downturn. He gave $10,000 to Mrs. Lopez's son to help him while he looked for a new job. He paid for job training programs for 3 people in his building who had been laid off. He donated to a food bank that was seeing increased demand because of the economic troubles. He did not publicize these donations. He just did them quietly. But word got around the neighborhood. People saw that Marcus was not just someone who made money off the crash. He was someone who cared about what happened to regular people. One evening, Marcus was walking to his apartment when he ran into the young woman he had met on the bench months ago, the one who had been crying after losing her job. Hey, she said, recognizing him. You are that taxi driver everyone is talking about. Guilty, Marcus said with a small smile. I wanted to thank you, she said. That day we talked, you just listened. You did not try to fix everything or give me fake positivity. You just sat with me. It helped more than you know. Did you find a new job? Marcus asked. I did, she said. It took 3 months, but I found something. It does not pay as much as before, but it is good, and honestly, I am happier now. That whole experience taught me that I was chasing the wrong things. Money is important, but it is not everything. That is wise, Marcus said. I learned it from you, she said. I have been reading your newsletter. You write about balance, about understanding money without letting it control you. That really resonated with me. After she left, Marcus felt good. This was why he had turned down the high-paying jobs. This was why he spent his time teaching classes and writing newsletters instead of working for a hedge fund. He was making a real difference in real people's lives. He went up to his apartment, the same small apartment he had lived in for years. He could afford something better now. He had the money, but he decided to stay. This place kept him grounded. It reminded him where he came from. Marcus sat at his desk and opened his laptop. He had a newsletter to write. This week's topic: the difference between being smart and being wise. He had been thinking about this a lot lately. Being smart meant knowing facts and making correct predictions. Being wise meant understanding what really mattered. Marcus had been smart when he predicted the crash, but he was learning to be wise too. And wisdom, he was discovering, was even more valuable than being right. 1 year after the crash, Marcus sat in a television studio preparing for an interview. But this time was different. He was not nervous. He knew exactly what he wanted to say. The show was a special program about the anniversary of the crash. They had invited several experts, economists, bank executives, government officials. And they had invited Marcus. The host, a woman named Rebecca Stone, started by asking the experts what had gone wrong a year ago. They gave complicated answers about leverage ratios, credit default swaps, and regulatory failures. All technically correct, all completely missing the point. When Rebecca turned to Marcus, she asked, "Mr. Chen, you have a different perspective. What do you think went wrong?" Marcus leaned forward. "People stopped being honest," he said simply. Everyone knew something was wrong. The traders knew. The executives knew. The regulators knew. But nobody wanted to say it out loud because saying it would make it real. So everyone kept pretending, kept playing the game, hoping someone else would be the one to finally tell the truth. The studio was quiet for a moment. One of the bank executives looked uncomfortable. "But you told the truth," Rebecca said. "Why were you able to see it when all these experts could not?" Marcus thought about how to answer. "Because I had nothing to lose," he said. "These experts, they are part of the system. Their jobs depend on the system working. Their identities are tied up in being right. I was just a taxi driver. If I was wrong, so what? Nobody would care. That freedom to be wrong gave me the freedom to be honest." After the show, several people came up to Marcus. One was a young woman who worked at an investment bank. "What you said in there," she whispered, "it was true. I see it every day. Everyone knows when things are going wrong, but nobody will say it. We all just keep working, keep smiling, keep pretending." "Then stop pretending," Marcus said gently. "You do not have to blow a whistle or make a scene, but at least be honest with yourself. Know what you are really doing and why." The woman nodded and walked away. Marcus hoped she would think about what he said. His life had found a rhythm now. 3 days a week he still drove his taxi. 2 days a week he worked on his newsletter and taught classes. Weekends were for himself, for rest, for thinking. The newsletter had grown to 500,000 subscribers. Marcus had started charging a small fee, just $5 a month. He did not need the money, but Dorothy had convinced him that people valued things more when they paid for them. She was right. The paid subscribers were more engaged, more thoughtful, more likely to actually use what they learned. With the income from the newsletter, Marcus had been able to hire Dorothy part-time and bring on 2 more people. A researcher who helped him gather information, and a community manager who helped respond to reader questions. His book had come out 6 months ago. It was called Listening to the Street: What a Taxi Driver Learned About Money, Markets, and Human Nature. It had sold surprisingly well, Not bestseller level, but enough that people were reading it, learning from it, applying it. The best part was the letters he got. People wrote to tell him how the book had changed their thinking. A factory worker in Michigan who had avoided losing his savings by paying attention to the mood at his workplace. A hairdresser in Texas who noticed her clients talking differently about money and adjusted her own finances accordingly. A retired veteran who realized that his military training and situational awareness could apply to understanding economics. Marcus kept these letters. They reminded him why he did this work. He had also been invited to speak at universities. At first, this surprised him. What could a taxi driver teach college students studying finance? But the professors who invited him understood something important. They wanted their students to see that knowledge came from many places, not just textbooks and theories. At Harvard Business School, Marcus gave a talk to a packed auditorium. He told his story, showed pages from his old notebooks, explained his method of observation and pattern recognition. A student raised her hand. "Mr. Chen, we study all these sophisticated models and theories. Are you saying those do not matter?" "Not at all," Marcus said. "The models and theories are important, but they are not enough. They cannot predict the most important variable, what humans will do when they are scared or greedy. You need both, the technical knowledge from your classes and the human understanding from watching people. The best investors I know use both." After his talk, a professor pulled him aside. His name was Dr. James Morrison, and he taught behavioral economics. "Would you consider teaching a course here?" he asked. "Not a full semester, maybe just a week-long intensive. Teaching students what you know about reading human behavior and markets." Marcus was stunned. "You want me to teach at Harvard?" "Yes," Dr. Morrison said. "Not as a traditional professor. As a practitioner, someone who lived it, someone who can teach them what books cannot." Marcus agreed. That had been 3 months ago. He had just finished teaching his first class last week. The students had loved it. More importantly, they had learned. Marcus could see it in their eyes, the moment when they understood that finance was not just numbers and formulas. It was people making decisions under pressure. But despite all the success, Marcus stayed grounded. He still lived in his small apartment. He still drove his taxi. He still shopped at the same grocery store and ate at the same diners. His neighbors were proud of him, but they also saw that he had not changed who he was. One afternoon, Marcus was driving a passenger to the airport. The man was in his 60s wearing casual clothes. They chatted about small things, traffic, the weather, New York City. As they got close to the airport, the man said, "Can I ask you something? Are you Marcus Chen, the taxi driver who predicted the crash?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, that is me." "I thought so," the man said. "I have been reading your newsletter for months. I really appreciate what you do. You make finance accessible to normal people like me." "Thank you," Marcus said. "That means a lot." The man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I tell you something? I used to work on Wall Street. 25 years as a trader, made a lot of money, lost touch with reality. The crash was the best thing that ever happened to me. I lost my job, and at first I was devastated. But then I realized I had been miserable for years. I had been chasing money and status instead of meaning. Now I work at a nonprofit helping low-income families with financial literacy. I make way less money, but I am happier than I have ever been." Marcus was moved. "That is a beautiful story," he said. "You helped me see it," the man said. "You're writing about wisdom versus cleverness, about what really matters. It changed my perspective. So thank you." After the man left, Marcus sat in his taxi at the airport. He thought about all the changes of the past year. The crash, the publicity, the newsletter, the teaching, the money, the opportunities, but mostly he thought about impact, about the people he had helped. The nurse who learned to pay attention, the teacher who saved his retirement by listening to warnings, the young woman who found herself after losing her job, the Wall Street trader who found meaning by leaving Wall Street, Marcus realized that he had done something rare. He had taken knowledge from one world and made it accessible to another world. He had built a bridge between Wall Street and Main Street, between experts and everyday people, between theory and reality. His phone buzzed. A text from Dorothy. Newsletter draft looks good. Ready to send tomorrow? Marcus texted back. Yes, send it. This week's newsletter was about staying patient during recovery. The market had bounced back over the past year, which was good. But Marcus warned against getting too excited, too confident. Markets move in cycles, he had written. Up and down. The key is not to get too emotional in either direction. Stay balanced. Stay aware. Keep listening. Marcus started his taxi and drove back to Manhattan. The city looked beautiful in the late afternoon sun. The tall buildings. The busy streets. The mix of rich and poor, powerful and powerless, all sharing the same sidewalks. He had come to love this city even more over the past year, because he understood it better now. He understood how money flowed through it, how fear and confidence moved like weather systems, how individual decisions added up to collective outcomes. As he drove, Marcus thought about the future. He had been offered a regular column in a major newspaper. He was considering it. He had also been asked to advise a new investing app designed for regular people. That interested him too. But whatever he did next, Marcus knew one thing for certain. He would not lose his perspective. He would not become disconnected from regular people. He would not start thinking he was special or better than anyone else, because the truth was simple. Marcus had been lucky. Lucky to have a job that put him in the right place at the right time. Lucky to have the curiosity to listen and learn. Lucky to have kept notes all those years. Lucky to have trusted his observations enough to act on them. But luck was not the whole story. He had also worked hard. He had paid attention when others tuned out. He had learned when he could have just driven. He had thought deeply when he could have just gone through the motions. Marcus believed that most people had the same potential he did. The potential to observe, to think, to understand. They just needed someone to show them it was possible. That you did not need a fancy degree or a high-paying job to understand how the world worked. You just needed to pay attention and be honest about what you saw. That night, Marcus parked his taxi and walked to his apartment. Mrs. Lopez was outside watering her small garden. Evening. Marcus, she called. Evening, Mrs. Lopez, he replied. How is your son doing? Much better, she said. He found a new job. Pays less than before, but he says he likes it better. More time with his family. You know, sometimes losing something makes you find what really matters. That is very true, Marcus said. He went up to his apartment and made himself dinner. Just rice and vegetables, simple and good. He ate slowly, thinking about everything that had happened over the past year. Tomorrow he would wake up at 5 in the morning. He would make his instant coffee. He would drive his taxi through the streets of New York. And he would listen. Because listening, Marcus had learned, was never finished. The world kept changing. People kept making decisions. Markets kept moving. And there were always new patterns to notice, new lessons to learn, new stories to hear. Marcus Chen had predicted a stock market crash and changed his life. But more importantly, he had shown that wisdom could come from anywhere, that the person driving the taxi might understand the economy better than the person in the back seat, that paying attention was a skill anyone could develop. He had proven that you did not have to be part of the elite to see the truth. Sometimes being outside the system gave you the clearest view, and that was a lesson worth more than any amount of money. A lesson that Marcus would keep teaching in his newsletter, in his classes, in his book, and in the simple way he lived his life. The market would rise and fall again. There would be more crashes and more recoveries, but Marcus would be there watching and listening, helping regular people understand what was happening and why, because that was his calling now, not to predict the future, but to help people see the present clearly, to teach them to trust their observations, to show them that they had power and knowledge they did not even know they possessed. Marcus closed his eyes, tired but content. He had found his purpose, not in being right about a prediction, but in helping others find their own wisdom, and that made all the difference.